like that.
Okay, what's your color?
I'm gonna say jalapeno green.
Jalapeno green. What's your number?
11.
And what do you want to bring into your life?
Acceptance.
And what do you want to release?
Fear.
All right. Okay, so we have 11. Jalapeno green. Bring in acceptance and release fear. Once upon a time, there was this hairy, ugly, rotten, disgusting, huge monster. And he had 11 brothers and sisters that were each one of them progressively more hairy, more disgusting, more ugly, and stinky than him. And they lived in a patch of jalapeno chilies. Now, that was their favorite thing to eat, and maybe that's why they stunk so much, because they ate a lot of jalapeno chilies with all kinds of things that went with the jalapeno chilies. So here these stinky monsters are in their patch of jalapeno chilies. And it seemed like they were afraid of nothing. Because I'll tell you, anybody that came down that trail wanting to pick some jalapenos, I mean, this patch of jalapenos was so wild. I mean, it was entangled, it was everybody in the world. Except the 11 monsters that lived there. Anybody that came in from out of the area that didn't know about the monsters that lived in the jalapeno chili patch were in for, a big surprise. Because as soon as they'd come walking down that road, these guys would see them from far away. And even though they growled a lot and got really, really scary looking and jumping out and right at anybody who would come near, they weren't all that brave. And they did all the because they weren't that brave. They were afraid. They were afraid of everything. And the only thing that got them through life was to go at anything and everybody. I mean, little bunny rabbits. They rush out on the trail and anybody who had seen that would think, that's kind of ridiculous for you to try and scare a little bunny rabbit away. But, nobody's going to tell a big, hairy, ugly, stinky monster what he should be afraid of and what he shouldn't. So they had no enemies, even though they thought everything and everybody was an enemy. Always. That's all they thought of. And that's why they perfected their growling and their snarling to be ready for those people that would brave the jalapeno patch. They were mean. They were really, really mean. And it was all because of their fear. They were afraid. They were really afraid. And one day, there was a little, I can't really even describe him. It was a little boy, and he just seemed very mild. He seemed very little. He seemed like he would be afraid of everything, you would think, because he was so quiet. And you would never know that he was probably the bravest person in the whole country. He'd heard about the jalapeno monsters, and he thought, you know, I bet that they just need a friend. And besides that, I want some jalapeno chilies. And so he braved the path down to the jalapeno chili patch. And he knew that any time one of them was going to jump out and scare him. So he walked with his head up and very purposefully just strode right down to the very center of the patch and stood there. He was waiting. He was waiting for them to jump out and yell at him. And you know what? They looked at him, and it was kind of odd because he was walking so proudly and so strongly right at them. They thought, what's this? This little boy is different. And it kind of froze them. And they didn't jump out and growl at him. They just stood up, all 11 of them, and looked at him and said, "Who are you?" The little boy said, "I'm Joe. And I would like some jalapeno chilies, please. Will you share with me? I'll be happy to bring you something tomorrow from my farm if you'll share some jalapeno chilies with me today. My mama loves to make chili, and I've heard that jalapeno chilies are the best, and I would like to have some for my supper tomorrow night." And they looked at him and they scratched their heads, and one of the other ones looked at him and he said, "You're not afraid of us? What's the matter with you? We're ugly, we're mean, we're stinky, we're disgusting." Rawr! He said, "No, I'm not afraid of you at all. See, I know you're monsters, and that's your job, to scare people away from your jalapeno patch. But you know what? I'm not afraid of you. I think you're kind of cool. You know, I might like to hang out with you because, you know, if anybody treats me bad, I'll just call you and say, hey." Or I'll even threaten whoever's mean to me, and I'll say, "Hey, you know those mean monsters down on Jalapeno Patch? They are my buddies. And you know what? I bet nobody will bother me." And they, all 11 of them, stood there scratching their heads, and they didn't know what to make of Joe. So they just let him pick his chilies. And the next day, Joe brought them back some of the chili that his mother had made. And they started eating it, and they said, "Wow, this is good stuff. It's much better than just picking these things off the bush and eating them." So they continued. Every time Joe wanted jalapeno chilies, he went down to the monster patch and picked them. And then the next day, he'd bring them some chili. And they did become his friends. They accepted him, and he accepted them. What a strange thing. What a strange sight. But you know what? Joe also went around telling his friends, "Hey, these guys aren't so bad. You know what? I think they're scared of us. And if you treat them nice, and maybe bring them something in exchange for their chilies, they'll give you some." So all the kids in the town started doing that. Now the grown-ups were still scared of the monsters, and they would tell their kids, "Don't you dare go down to the jalapeno patch where those monsters live." But sometimes the kids are a little bit smarter than mom and dad, and they knew. They knew that these smelly, stinky, disgusting, angry monsters were just scared. They wanted friends. They wanted to be accepted. So all the kids in town did. And pretty soon, they would all go down there in a herd and pick jalapeno chilies. And then the next day, they'd take all sorts of goodies down to the monsters. And finally, monsters didn't need to growl at anybody anymore.
And I do have this ugly bush that has a lot of jalapenos.
See, you just didn't know there's monsters living in it.
I guess.